I'm going to say something that I used to think was obvious, but apparently it's not. Writers read. Can you imagine being, I don't know, a basketball player and never watching basketball games? The other teams, they do that, right? To see how other people, to study how they, to study, the professionals do it to study how they're going to beat them. But I mean, even kids, I mean, you watch basketball because you love basketball and you want to learn from people who are doing it already, right? I mean, if you're a musician, you go to concerts, I think, and you listen to the kind of music you like, and hopefully you listen to you widen your repertoire. You're listening to stuff that you maybe haven't listened to before. But I work with a lot of writers, and some of them like, "What are you reading?" "Oh, I don't really like," or I see on some of the forums on social media. "Well, I don't really like to read, but I want to write this." They're not my clients. What do you mean you don't like to read? Why would somebody want to read work by somebody who doesn't like to read? I think that's odd. Maybe it's possible that you can become a brilliant writer when you don't like to read, but I can't imagine how. I just can't imagine how. If you don't like the medium, maybe you should be a filmmaker. So what do you read? I've spoken to people. A lot of people are reading nonfiction, like how to, and great stuff, psychology, and that's great for fiction writers actually to read a lot of psychology, learn how people's brains work and their problems, and how they manifest trauma, and that's great. Read all that stuff. But if you're a fiction writer, also read fiction and lots of different kinds. Not just what you think you like. Like if you write science fiction, read literary fiction too. You think you don't like it? Nah, it depends what you're reading. It depends what you're reading. So, I mean, literary fiction is a huge genre. There's all kinds of different stuff in there, just like science fiction. Some of it's just awful, and some of it's really wonderful. So, and if you write memoir, I'm working with a few people now that are writing memoir who've never read a memoir. Well, how are you gonna? It doesn't mean that you're copying what you're reading. Of course not. It's just to see how many different ways there are to go about it, and the a bazillion different structures, and you can create your own. But just, I mean, you learn by studying other writers. That's how you learn. You learn by doing it, but you also learn by studying other writers. So you read stuff that you like, and you read stuff that you go, man, that wasn't so good. And then I'm going to ask you, when I was in MFA school, that was monthly. You wrote a story. People were working on novels too, but what you turned in was you wrote a draft, you revised a draft. It was two things, and you wrote a short essay on something that you were reading, a collection of stories or a novel. They weren't teaching nonfiction at the time, and so I'd read it through first just to enjoy it. You're a reader, right? I mean, I read it, and then, man, I really like this. Okay, let me figure out why. What did I like about it? Let me find one thing that I liked about it. I love the character development. And then go through and see how that writer did that. What did they do that helped them to develop that character so powerfully that you love their characters? Or maybe you love the way they use setting, either in fiction or non. Setting really grabbed me. Let me go in there and see their word choice, how they juxtapose setting against something else, summary. Again, okay, so you read, you enjoy, and then you go back and put on your analytical hat and see how it works and experiment. And yeah, steal. I mean, you're playing, right? So play with other people's with their voices. Try writing in somebody else's voice and see what you learn. It's all about playing and experimenting and learning and studying. So don't leave that part out because you're cheating yourself if you don't read. Also, I mean, it's just so enjoyable. Start there, and get titles from teachers, from people in workshops, from, if you're on Facebook, I'm not anymore, but there's a lot of writing groups where you can ask for, what are you reading? There's Goodreads. There's other lists of the best of, whatever. If you read fiction, or write fiction. Read the best American short stories of each year. Just an amazing collection, always. And it's a different editor each time. So you get different tastes, but it's always just top notch. So and give, just get suggestions from friends, and you don't like it, go to the next thing. Gosh, there's plenty, right? Walk through the library, walk through the stacks, go to the fiction section and just start looking, reading, open it up in the middle, read chapter 6. Oh, this looks good. I'm going to try that. So there's a lot of ways to get titles, play around. I encourage you to read. I'm Pam Sorellis of Winged Horse Writing Studio, and I help writers lift their voices. And I'll talk to you again soon.